Nous nous souvenons aujourd'hui d'un des drames les plus horrifiants que l'humanité ait connus. C'était il y a 76 ans quand plus de 500 000 Roms et Sintis ont été brutalement assassinés par les nazis et par leurs collaborateurs. Un autre génocide commis pendant l'Holocauste. Je garde un souvenir très ému du musée de la culture rome à Brno en République tchèque, lors de la visite d'État que j'y ai effectuée en qualité de gouverneur général du Canada. C'était en 2008, et les témoignages troublants des Roms ne m'ont plus jamais quitté. Il était non seulement question des souffrances et des atrocités du passé, mais aussi des actes de haine, de violence et de discrimination croissants contre les populations roms, aujourd'hui encore. On a malheureusement vite fait d'oublier le génocide des Roms, de la même façon qu'on banalise les persécutions dont ils continuent d'être la cible. C'est pourquoi nous soutenons les efforts vraiment remarquables de sensibilisation de l'organisation Romani pour le devoir de mémoire, car ce souvenir est essentiel pour une pleine reconnaissance et une pleine valorisation de l'inscription de la singularité du patrimoine rome dans l'histoire de l'humanité et pour une vraie prise en compte des réalités et des droits des populations roms dans la construction d'une culture contemporaine de compréhension mutuelle et de respect. We remember today one of the most horrifying dramas that humanity has ever known. It was 76 years ago when more than 500,000 Roma and Sinti were brutally murdered by the Nazis and their collaborators. Another genocide committed during the Holocaust. I have fond memories of the Museum of Romani Culture in Brno, Czech Republic, during my state visit as Governor General of Canada. It was in 2008, and the disturbing testimonies of the Romani survivors do not leave me. It was not only about the suffering and atrocities of the past, but also about the increasing acts of hatred, violence, and discrimination against Roma populations, even today. Unfortunately, the Romani Genocide was quickly forgotten, in the same way that the persecutions of which Roma continue to be targeted are trivialized. This is why we support the remarkable efforts to raise awareness of the Romani Bay organization for the duty to remember. Because remembering is essential for a full recognition and promotion of the inclusion of the singularity of the Roma heritage in the history of humanity, and for a real consideration of the realities and rights of Romani populations in the construction of a contemporary culture of mutual understanding and respect.
Ladies and gentlemen, allow me first to acknowledge and thank Romani and the Montreal Holocaust Museum for the privilege to be involved in the commemoration of the Roma genocide. This is a very solemn day to mark the 76 years since the occurrence of the genocide, where at least 500,000 Roma and Sinti were brutally murdered during the Holocaust. In the press release my mandate at the United Nations has released on this day, I stressed that Roma and Sinti have been among the minorities that were traditionally and historically victims of massacres and other grave human rights violations, and that while we don't know precisely how many Roma were killed in the Holocaust, it's estimated that the Nazis and their allies killed around 25% of all European Roma. It's, however, an even more disturbing day because of what is occurring now. Violence, hatred, exclusion, and vilification still persists today in many parts of the world. We're seeing an alarming rise in intimidation, aggression, and violence affecting Roma minorities, including scapegoating and hate speech through social media during the COVID-19 pandemic. The atrocities of the past against Roma and Sinti and the dehumanization and denigration of which they are symptomatic must not be perpetuated. States must take bold steps to prevent any further human rights violations so that Roma can live without fear and stigmatization as equal members of society. There must also be comprehensive anti-discrimination measures, as well as legislative and policy initiatives to protect and promote their human rights, their identity, languages, and rich culture and history. On this important date, states need not only increase public knowledge about the Roma Holocaust, they must also recommit to tackle the racism and discrimination that are still too prevalent and designate an official day of remembrance. Thank you.
Bonjour, mon nom est Zuberi, le député fédéral de Pierrefonds-dans-l'Art. Aujourd'hui, nous reconnaissons la génocide contre le peuple romani. 76 years ago, 500,000 people were killed by the Nazis and their collaborators. We must recognize the Romani Genocide to ensure that genocide does not happen against anybody today and into tomorrow, and also to ensure that the Romani people are not discriminated against and the crimes against humanity that they suffered are recognized. Thank you.
Bonjour. Aujourd'hui, nous nous souvenons du génocide des Roms par les nazis pendant la Deuxième Guerre mondiale. Hello. Today, we remember and we reflect on the genocide of the Roma by the Nazis during the Second World War. This has often been called the forgotten genocide because it's taken decades for many countries around the world to recognize that a genocide took place targeting the Roma and to call for an appropriate response. Indeed, still today, Canada needs to take the step of officially recognizing August the 2nd as a day of remembrance and commemoration of what happened. We stand with the Roma people in remembering the horrific crimes that were inflicted against their people, and also in calling for action today, action against anti-Roma racism and prejudice that exists in many countries around the world. And we need to work hard to deliver on the promise of never again after the Holocaust. We have seen other people since the Second World War subject to genocides, even today as we speak, ongoing acts of unspeakable violence around the world against minorities. So it's important for us to remember these past events and to step up and do more to prevent genocide and other acts of violence and bigotry that we see around the world. And to work hard to have August the 2nd remembered and commemorated here in Canada officially, and officially recognize the Roma genocide. Thank you for the acts of remembrance that you're engaging in, and we as parliamentarians stand with you in marking this important occasion and working to deliver on the promise of never again.
Hi, this is Anthony Housefather, Member of Parliament for Mount Royal, and I am glad to provide a message of support for the organizers of this event tonight, commemorating the 76th anniversary of the Romani Genocide. It's different this year. We're not all together in one room, but regardless of how we commemorate, we have to remember that the Nazis perpetrated one of the greatest atrocities in the history of the world. The Holocaust against the Jews, the genocide against the Romani people. This was one of the most organized, systematic destructions of entire peoples that ever happened. C'est quelque chose qu'il faut rappeler chaque année. On ne peut jamais oublier qu'est-ce que les nazis ont fait. On ne peut jamais oublier le génocide contre le peuple romain et Sintis durant la Deuxième Guerre mondiale. And so I pledge, as I have before, that I support the formal recognition of the Romani Genocide by the House of Commons. I believe that it is important, especially in light of the continued discrimination that is faced by the Roma people around the world. We live in an age where hatred is given countenance by some political leaders. There is more racism, anti-Semitism, ethnic hatred, and hatred against the Roma people is just one of the manifestations of what is occurring. We need to combat it every day and we can never forget what happened 76 years ago.
Hello, my name is David Sweet. I'm a Canadian Member of Parliament and the Canadian Shadow Minister for International Human Rights and Religious Freedom. I want to thank you for the opportunity and honor to speak to you on this very solemn occasion. During the Second World War, over 500,000 Romani and Sinti were brutally murdered by the Nazis. Under the Nuremberg laws, the Roma were classified as enemies of the race-based state, putting them in the same category as the Jewish people, as well as other minorities. The Roma still face discrimination and persecution today, often through acts of violence and hatred. Many European countries designate today, August 2nd, as the Roma and Sinti Genocide Remembrance Day. On behalf of my Conservative colleagues in the House of Commons, let me give you my solemn promise that we will continue to raise the issues that the Roma face today through persecution and discrimination, and we will work very hard to assure that every Canadian citizen remembers the Holocaust, remembers the Roma and Sinti who were killed during that Holocaust. May we never, ever forget. Thank you.
C'est avec beaucoup d'émotion que j'ai accepté l'invitation de Dafina Savic, directrice de l'organisme Romani, à participer à cet hommage virtuel en cette journée commémorative du génocide des Roms. It is with great emotion that I accepted the invitation to participate in a virtual tribute on this day commemorating the Roma Genocide. Le 2 août 2018, le gouvernement du Canada reconnaissait officiellement le génocide et l'histoire commune des peuples roms en tant que victimes et survivants des atrocités nazies, aux côtés du peuple juif, commises durant l'Holocauste. Encore aujourd'hui, le génocide des Roms demeure un des génocides oubliés de notre histoire, et nous avons tous un devoir de mémoire, une obligation morale de nous souvenir de ces événements historiques meurtrières, afin de faire en sorte que de telles atrocités ne se reproduisent plus. I would like to acknowledge and thank Romani for their efforts and determination, for campaigning tirelessly to fight racism and ensure the rights of Roma refugees in Canada are respected. We must continue to be proactive and vigilant as Roma people continue to be marginalized. Inclusion and respect must prevail, and it is our responsibility to promote these collective values, which are so dear to Quebecers and Canadians. L'inclusion et le respect doivent prévaloir, et c'est notre responsabilité collective à tous et à toutes de promouvoir ces valeurs qui sont si chères aux Québécois et Canadiens. Merci. Thank you.
Bonjour. I am humbled and honored to join you for this commemoration of the tragic genocide of some 500,000 Roma and Sinti peoples 76 years ago. I know that your community worldwide continues to suffer from a stigmatisation, un traitement tout à fait non équitable, et il faut que ça arrête. Il faut aussi commémorer de façon formelle ce génocide. And I commit, as the member of the National Assembly for Darcy-McGee and the provincial government, to working with you to have our federal government properly commemorate this very tragic event. I wish you strength and solidarity and the very best at this difficult time. And let's hope that we can earn the recognition for this terribly important and tragic event that your community so richly deserves. Mes meilleures salutations à vous tous. Thank you.